Thank you for coming through.
Thanks. Sure. I'm happy to be here.
The legend.
Greatly appreciate you coming through. Gosh, how do you start with BD Wong? How do you start a conversation?
There's a lot to start with, but I guess we have to start with where you're here for what your latest project is,
Yes.
which is Awkwafina's show.
Yeah.
Everyone calls her Nora, I'm guessing. No one actually.
Well, not everyone, and it's kind of funny as somebody who has kind of different names that different people call you. It's interesting to kind of like try to figure out what's the best for each appropriate situation. So she is Awkwafina because Awkwafina is a thing, you know, is a state of mind or whatever, and then she's Nora because there's a human being underneath, like that's in more intimate situations or descriptions can be applicable, whatever. And the show is a comedy based upon her life growing up in Queens. She grew up with her dad and her grandma, and I play her dad, and her grandma's played by Laurie Chin, and from Orange Is the New Black. And it's a really nice combination of comedy, broad comedy, kind of Broad City stuff. That show, Broad City. Some of the same people worked on that, and kind of millennial young woman angst in New York City, but then with a kind of a family angle and a kind of family warmth and family tension and all of that stuff.
Now, you've spoken in past interviews about lack of diversity in Hollywood and representation, and now we're here promoting this show.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's emblematic of some better strides that we're making?
Yeah, and I think that Awkwafina, this is where the word Awkwafina kind of applies,
Yes.
because the whole brand of Awkwafina, I have learned is that at the center of this person is a kind of vision and a real desire to do right and to take every opportunity and make the most out of it and try to move the needle wherever she can. And in the hiring of the show, the creation of the writing staff, which is primarily female and women of color specifically, and the directors in the show, because a show is built by its directors, and the default is totally Caucasian men directing everything, and so for someone to actually force the issue or to make the change really concretely and very commit to it really strongly, it takes a real backbone and a sense of vision that I think I have a tremendous amount of respect for, because I've been on a few different TV shows and I've always wondered, what would it take to change this kind of equation? And you realize, it takes one person at the very top who understands what their power and what their influence is to really drive a concept like this forward, and someone that knows that people trust her, and that so she can assemble a team that really works and that will succeed, and that's super exciting to me. And it is a kind of a paradigm shift in a way of thinking about how we can further ourselves in this business as people of color, and how that can happen, and in some ways how simple it is actually. And this is the first project I've ever really done in which I'm dating someone. Okay, so there's a whole long conversation to have about Asian men and what people think of them in the media, and how that we get cast, and actors like me who are not like huge kind of leading men types or whatever are often kind of looked over or not really taken seriously as romantic partners. And there's a romance angle to this first season of the show, which I found, it's very ordinary to other people, but to me it was like really great, a really great relationship with another actor, Jennifer Esposito, who I loved and who was fantastic and really well chosen for me, I felt, and really felt lucky that they got her, and having the fun of having chemistry with someone.
It's dope that it seems like Awkwafina is just one part of like a larger surge in representations happening now with like John Chu and Crazy Rich Asians and Lulu Wang and all those people.
Yeah, I think she's symbolic of it. She's kind of a leading player within this, whatever you might call a movement. She's like, I think, forward thinking, and people push her forward. She's fashion forward. That always actually is a real an indication of someone's cultural value, their fashion sense, or their sense of being pushed forward as a fashion icon, or allowed to be a fashion icon, or groomed to be one. And you go, oh yes, she's a trendsetter, or she's a person to watch, and not everybody gets to be chosen that way. She doesn't even, she herself has not been that aggressive in being that person. It just happened naturally. Like Lupita, this is what happened to Lupita, and I think that is wonderful. I actually value it very highly
Yes.
with someone's cultural cred.
Right.
I'm not that into fashion or follow it that much, but I do see that when people's eyes and focus go to a certain kind of person from a fashion perspective, it's an indicative of what their impact can be in a larger way.
Yes.
That I think is really cool.
Now, BD, we are huge Mr. Robot fans
Oh,
here.
great.
I think we put
You get a lot of
season
credit for that.
4 as
Yeah.
like the 3rd best show of the year.
Yes, yeah, it was number
Okay.
3.
And there's an argument
The
to
whole
take it
season
higher.
4.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
Great.
It was highly contested here. It was that. It was Watchmen. It was Succession.
Yeah,
It was,
I get it. Yeah.
We had
You got good
crazy
taste.
Yeah, appreciate that.
What a finale.
I thought it was an incredible finale, and I actually think it was an incredible season. Season finale, and the whole season 4,
Right.
to me, the way it played out, every single episode. And you know what I do when I worked on this show is I did my part, but I didn't pay attention to the rest of the story. So I
Wow.
would watch the show in many cases as a fan,
Oh, nice.
because I loved it, and I would do also what real fans of Mr. Robot do and rewatch the show.
Okay.
Because on a second viewing, there's just richness that comes out of it, and aha moments and all that stuff. So I had all of those just like everybody else. So I actually had a viewing party for the season finale, and then it was so crowded and kind of buzzing with energy. You know, Gloria Rubin came, and Elliot Villar came, and Ashley Atkinson came, and Grant Chan, like a whole bunch of Mr. Robot actors came, and we were so kind of overwhelmed that it was really hard to digest the complexities of the final 2 shows. And then it wasn't until I really went back and watched them in a quiet room when nobody else was around, and I was rather blown away by how it all kind of came around.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. I was very proud of doing it. I always will be. It was one of the more rewarding acting tasks, and collaboration with costume designers and makeup designers and makeup artists and hair designers, all of that coming together in a way that I find really stimulating. I really like to work with all the other people who helped you to create a character, like the makeup artists and the special effects makeup artists on Gotham. I really enjoyed all the different ways that you can make a person. As a character actor, you end up kind of wanting to transform as much as you can, and so I love that part of it. And then Sam Esmail, I just was in constant kind of awe and kind of just so thrilled to be able to work with someone after years of, in my training, always trying to learn how to identify what good writing really was, and in a way to kind of try to figure out how can I identify it so that I can make the most of breathing life into it. And this was a huge opportunity for me, probably in complete different proportion to any other experience I've ever had, as far as the quality of the writing and the vision of the person who created the show, and the fact that he also directed the show.
Yeah.
So it was great. I loved it. I loved the finale, and I loved the way that he pressed this character who started out being kind of rather mysterious and fleeting, just kind of giving them a little bit of her here and a little bit of her there, and then her role grew,
Yes.
in a way that was super satisfying to the actor, but also I think the fans really kind of snowballed to this point where you, ironically, if you were a certain kind of fan, you could understand her better than you expected to, or you learned things about her that you didn't expect to learn, or you didn't just vilify her just flat out as a bad person, which is the sign of something a little bit more interesting to me than just a flat out antagonist who is only there to act as a contrast or create tension for the main character. So I loved it. I can't say enough about it. I loved every part of the experience, and it was really challenging to do. It was shot. Have you ever talked to anybody that worked on the show? It was shot completely out of sequence. So all 10, I guess it was 11 episodes are shot like a 11-hour movie, and so on one given day you're doing scenes from this episode and scenes from this episode. Usually you shoot maybe a 8 to 10 day schedule. You'll shoot one episode. Okay, we're doing episode 1, and then we're going to do episode 2, and then we're going to do episode 3, and we're going to work our way through the season. And in each one you're kind of you're kind of understanding the trajectory of the show. But Mr. Robot, you shot. Okay, it's like, okay, today we're in Elliot's apartment, which we're in throughout, and we're doing all of those scenes in Elliot's apartment, or they're doing that, and then the actors and the designers and the prop people and all of the wonderful people that collaborate on any given aspect have to keep track of where we are and what's happening, and whether your hair was like this, or when you get a bruise on your face, okay, what stage of healing was it at on this scene, that kind of thing, because there's a lot of that in the show. And also so there was this kind of and so there's a lot of opportunities for Starbucks cups to be left out and create a thing which never happened, with great continuity on the show. And so it was it was a very interesting way. It was a very, very interesting way to work, and very challenging and very hard to keep track of. And there's also a real high level of anti-spoiler sentiment on the show. They didn't want anybody to know anything. The actors themselves don't know sometimes what's happening, and I went through a lot of the first couple of seasons going, Sam, I know he won't tell me what is actually the meat of what I'm doing, and I had a lot of trouble as an actor in some scenes. He'll say, you're gonna take Angela and you're gonna show her this thing, and then she's gonna completely follow you, and you're going to change her life, and what is it I'm showing her?
Wow.
Silence. And so there's nothing more than that. So then I have the scene with Angela where, like Sam will say, well, could you be like a little more emotional about this moment? Why am I being emotional? Shrugging shoulders, kind of like mysterious silence, and that was challenging for me, because I go from a kind of normally from a place of, oh, well, give me as much information as you can, and I will like soak it up, or I'll install it into my hard drive and kind of like see what comes out. And then you have as many tools as you can to work emotionally, or to work in a way that feels authentic or real, to create moments that feel really real. So by the end of season 4, when I have what I would call my big scene with Rami at the end of season 4,
and the plant,
and the interesting thing about that, you guys are nerding about the show, right? So I can just talk about it.
Go ahead.
Well, we read the show in 2 days in a marathon reading of all the scripts. Okay, 2 days, first 1 through 6, and then 7 through 13 or 12, and we read all the scenes. And this was in January, which we shot that scene in like July. And I never had a situation where I got the script to something and had it for 5 or 6 months, except when I'm doing a play. And I thought, would it be interesting if I could apply some of the principles that make me so comfortable when I'm in rehearsal for a play, which is repetition every day, doing something every day for 4 weeks. By the time the show opens and the audience is coming in and paying, you've done it so many times. You are really, it's in your blood, it's in your body, there's muscle memory. And TV, it's never like that. You come in on the day and you're meeting the actor, then all of a sudden you're getting into a big fight with them, or making love to them or something, and you just met them and you don't even know them as an actor, let alone as a character, or that's someone that you're supposed to love. All of those things go out the window. So there's a shorthand to TV, and it goes really quickly. And film is a little bit more, bigger films can be done much more in a leisurely way, but television is super fast. And I applied these principles. I learned these big monologues and stuff, and I just did them every day in my own privacy of my own house. And I felt when I finally got there, oh wow, I really know what this feels like now. I'm not reaching for it in any way. I haven't, and that makes me really fond of that episode and really happy with it. Because I was able to do something process-wise that I'd never done before. I don't think I'll ever be able to do it again on a television show quite like that, unless I wrote the TV show myself, or unless there was some kind of mechanism for there to be a delay in the shooting of or something.
Now, we can't let you get out of here without talking about Jurassic World 3.
Okay, yeah, great.
This is going to be the first time you're reunited with everyone from the first movie.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
How excited are you?
I'm excited. I was like just starting out my work as an actor in movies and all of that stuff. When I did that movie, I'm like a baby in it, kind of looking like I'm kind of like a what's the word, like grumpy old man now, and I have really fond memories of that. Spielberg asked me to do that movie, and I auditioned, kind of with little scenes from the book, and then I was very disappointed when the character in the book got whittled down to almost nothing, but felt like a kind of day player in a movie, and when the part was really rich in the book.
Oh, wow.
And then I kind of felt at the time that there were possibly race-related reasons why they devalued that character, because they were always looking for actors who could bring them value. And that at the time in my community, there weren't a lot of famous Asian actors who would bring that value like there are now.
Yes.
And so I thought, oh, they don't care about this guy. And so he just kind of fell by the wayside. They didn't even explain what happened to him. Yeah. And then I had a friend named Nathan who said, well, that's going to come back to you. You're going to see that's going to come back. He was a big fan of the franchise. And I said, that is not going to come back. They don't care about that person. And then lo and behold, Colin Trevorrow came along and was going to breathe new life into the Jurassic Park sequel. In other words, the other two movies that are made with a Jurassic name on them are not really sequels to Jurassic Park.
Right.
They're just dinosaur movies with a Jurassic kind of vibe to them. And so he was going to make a sequel to the Jurassic Park movies. And of course, he combed through that movie looking for people who weren't dead. Who's left? Who's left? Was anybody left there? No, God. And then there's this one person who was like a big loose end. Originally, I think an accidental loose end. And then, as Nathan, my friend, said, it just that you're the only person that they can go to kind of, reinvigorate a thing. Now, there were other reasons why Laura Dern's character and Sam Neill's character and Jeff Goldblum's character, some of who had come back in some of the other movies, were not asked to be in there because those characters were not organic to coming back.
Right.
This person, Dr. Wu, was kind of someone who it would make sense was there pushing the technology forward, whatever he was doing, and his transition to someone who was having to play the game with the funders and all that stuff to try to figure out how to keep the technology going was more interesting. Then all of a sudden the part became more close to the part that I was so sorry that they had kind of stripped down. And so it's all like Nathan said, it kind of came back to me. It fell in my lap in a very random way. And now we're on the third movie of the Jurassic World leg of this journey. And I think Colin's going to really give him, now I can't tell you what this means, but I think it's going to give him a really nice send-off.
Interesting.
Now, but I don't even personally at this moment know what that means.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if it means a death. I don't know if it means a triumph overcoming death. I don't mean if it's a comeuppance or if it's actual kind of being right about things. But Colin seems to be rather fond of this character and seems to be very proud of where he has put him for the posterity.
If you enjoyed this conversation with B.D. Wong, check out the full interview on the Watch Less podcast. The Watch Less podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts.